everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be doing a tag video, and I know it's been quite some time since I've done one, but I saw this book tag on YouTube and I thought it was perfect to do because lately I have just been wanting to read all of the romance books. I've just been in such a romance mood. I've got lots of reading vlogs over the last month or two of just reading pretty much adult romance. So I thought it'd be a lot of fun to do the Get to Know the Romance Reader book tag. I will leave the link to the original creator down below. I am so excited to do this book tag. I was in the mood to kind of film a book tag and I was just looking on YouTube and this popped up and I was like, oh, this is perfect because I have a lot to talk about when it comes to romance books. Okay, so question number one is, what is your romance origin story? How you came to read your first romance novel. So my very first romance novel I read was Chesapeake Blue by Nora Roberts. I love this book so much. I've mentioned it a lot on my channel. I tend to read it once a year. This is actually the fourth book in the saga, the Chesapeake Bay saga, and it's about 4 adoptive brothers and just family, and of course there's romance, and it's Nora Roberts, so there's some spicy romance, but I adore this book. I read this in high school, and up until kind of high school, I read more of I'd say children's books like Narnia, Harry Potter I was a huge fan of. I also started reading Twilight, so I guess that could count, but Twilight, although it is romance, I think it's more it's very innocent. The first book is very innocent romance, and so when I think of the first romance book that I actually read, I think of Chesapeake Blue by Nora Roberts. Question number 2 is, if you could be the heroine in a romance novel, who would be the author and what's one trope you'd insist to be in the story? This is so easy. So I would want Sarah J. Maas to be the author because she is just queen. I adore her books and her writing, and she can write some really spicy romance scenes, and I am just trash for the hate to love relationships trope, and she does that also very, very, very well. She develops her characters so well to where it's not they go from hate to instant love. There's a gradual go from hate to love, and I love it. She will make her hate to love tropes over books, and you really get that sexual tension and just it's so good, and the character development and the world development, it's so good. Question number 3 is, what is a romance you've read this year that you want more people to read? This is really, really easy. So for this, I'm going with Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. I love this book. It's just so damn cute, and I read it 3 times in a row, twice in a row. I read it twice back to back. I finished it, I started it again, and then I think I kind of reread it again. It's just, you just come to love the characters and the relationship, and it's really, really cute. Now, I will say this is definitely adult romance, so if you are sensitive to romance scenes, then this is adult, so just keep that in mind. Language and lots of spicy scenes. The plot is great, and it's a lot about accepting yourself, and there's just fun banter and sass and the flirtation. It's great, but basically we're following the son of the president and then the Prince of England, and they have a secret relationship. So really, really good, and I highly, highly recommend it. Question number 4 is, what is your favorite romance subgenre? I kind of mentioned this a little bit in question number 2, and that is romance fantasy. I adore when there is romance within my fantasy. I love when the romance has its own plot, and then also the book and the fantasy and the world, and I guess the conflict has its own plot as well, and it like works really well together. There's a lot of fantasy books where they try to throw in a little bit of romance here and there and it just doesn't work. But when a good fantasy book has great romance, Sarah J Maas, then yes, it is so good. Question number 5 is, who is one of your auto-buy romance authors? So whatever they write, you will go out and read. So I want to say Sarah J Maas because she's fantastic, but she would be primarily known as a fantasy author, I would say. So I am gonna go with Nora Roberts on this one. I have read so many of her books and I love them, and she's kind of one of my go-to authors to read. So if I really want like I would say like fluffy adult romance with like a good plot, good characters, and maybe a little bit of like suspense and thrill, then I would definitely go with Nora Roberts because she writes her like murder mystery romance really, really well, and I absolutely adore them. Black Hills is one of my favorite books written by her, and like I said, it is a murder mystery romance, and it's fantastic. If I find a book on sale at like half price that is by hers, or a lot of times Barnes & Noble will have her hardbacks on sale for like $6, then I just instantly buy them, and like I don't even read the plot, honestly. I see Nora Roberts hardback, I buy, and I read it, and usually I very much enjoy her books. Question number 6 is, how do you typically find romance recommendations? So whether this is YouTube, Goodreads. So I would say YouTube, but YouTube is more primarily young adult, which is not bad. I adore young adult, don't get me wrong, but I would say probably maybe Goodreads is a good one, and just like recommendations from other authors. So if I'm like browsing the romance sections, and a lot of times, well, like this one doesn't have it, but a lot of times they'll have like quotes of what like other authors have said about the book, and I'll read that. And if one author recommends another author, like for example, if Nora Roberts were to have like a little blip on the back recommending a certain book, or like Sarah J Maas, then I would 100% pick it up, and that's usually how I like pick my romance books. Question number 7 is, what is an upcoming romance release that you are very excited for? So this question is really easy. Sarah J Maas is actually writing a new series called the Crescent City series, and book 1, House of Earth and Blood, is going to be coming out in like early 2020, and I am so excited. For genres, it's listed under fantasy fiction, high fantasy, urban fantasy, paranormal romance, and romantic fantasy. So that is just basically everything that I love, and I'm very, very, very excited for it. I feel like this is just turning into a fangirl gush about Sarah J Maas. Question number 8 is, what is one misconception about romance you would like to lay to rest? So personally, for this answer, I actually enjoy the adult content and like the smutty contents of adult romance. Like for example, Sarah J Maas, like her A Court of Mist and Fury has some quite spicy scenes, I guess you can say, and I quite like them, and I think if it's done tastefully, I think I don't think it's bad for the book. I think that's part of the romance part of the book. I know a lot of people will say they don't feel like those scenes add anything to the story, but I actually disagree. Sometimes it's necessary to see the passion between two characters to really understand how much they love each other and how intense the romance is. And obviously, like, some books can go too far, like, don't get me wrong. I actually tried reading the 50 Shades of Grey series, and I couldn't do it. Like, that was not for me. And I'm an avid romantic reader. Question number 9 is, who is the most recent romance reading content creator you came across that you'd like to shout out? Okay, that is a mouthful. So, like I said, I don't watch a lot of like YouTubers that talk about romance, but Hannah definitely recommended me this book, so I would highly recommend the Rainy Readers channel. Haley from Haley in Bookland has been reading a lot of adult romance and romantic books recently, so I would definitely recommend checking out her channel as well. And question number 10, which is my favorite question because it is a recommendations question, it is if someone had never read a romance before and asked you to recommend the first 3 romances that come to mind as places to start, what would those recommendations be? So, very, very excited. So I would say if you're younger and you want like a really good fantasy romance and where like the story isn't all romance and there's a lot more involved and it's gradual and it goes from more like young adult to new adult, I would definitely recommend the Throne of Glass series by Sarah J Maas. This is fantastic. It really starts off innocent and then it just progresses. So as you read it, the characters get older and the content gets a little bit more mature, but not to the point where I would necessarily consider it adult romance. It's like still pretty, I'd say like PG-13. And the story is fantastic. It's a 7-book series, so if you like a series and you want, like I said, that like amazing plot, like you want more meat than just romance, if you're just starting to like dip your toes in romance, this is like a really good book series to read because it's got a little bit of both. Now, if you want to read like adult romance and you want something that's a little bit like a standalone, then I would go with one of Nora Roberts' mystery. The romance is adult, but it's not overly graphic. I think it's done very well. I would say it's like PG-13 to maybe a little bit R, nothing like too intense, and it's got like a really good plot, good characters, and once again, it's very, very, very romance heavy. Romance is going to be the main part of the story, but there's going to be other aspects of the story as well, like solving a murder. So that kind of gives you a little bit more of substance. I'm actually gonna recommend 4. So if you want something that is young adult, it's contemporary, it is just so cute and so relatable. Most people love this book, and it does have like a really good, innocent, heartwarming, like pure romance in it. I would read Fangirl by Rainbow Rowell. This book is fantastic. We're following Kath. She's a twin and she's about to start university, and her twin sister does not want to room with her anymore, so she is kind of on her own for the first time. She has a new roommate and she's like navigating life, and she writes fan fiction for Simon Snow, which is like their version of Harry Potter. So if you're a Harry Potter fan, you're gonna love a lot of those references, and there is like a sweet, adorable romance in here that is just so heartwarming, and it just makes you smile, and it's very, I would say, PG to PG-13. It's very, very sweet, and it's great for a younger audience. So yeah, I would highly recommend that. And then if you are wanting something a little bit more spicy and you do like that fantasy, romance fantasy, then I would highly recommend checking out A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J Maas. This is a trilogy, so it's not as intense as her Throne of Glass, but the romance in here is probably some of the more steamy romance that I have actually read, and it's very mature, I would say. A Court of Thorns and Roses, not so much, but A Court of Mist and Fury, which is book 2, very, very mature. So yeah, if you're really wanting to like dive straight into some good romance, and you want great characters, great sass, great banter, great wit, great plot, I would highly, highly recommend this series. Okay, well that is it for this book tag. This was so much fun. I adored filming this. Comment down below. Let me know 3 books that you would recommend for romance and like why. Like pick like different subgenres, I guess, and let me know like what your recommendations are and why you would recommend them and to like what age group and stuff. Now I just want to go read all of the romance books. So yeah, that is it for this video. I really hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you next time. Bye!